frost.
Can you split those?
The diamond frost, probably not. I haven't tried it yet, but it looks like it has a pretty single root system.
But they get pretty tall, don't they?
They'll get about 12 to 14 inches tall. I'm just looking for holes here where to place some more color. And you can even take your fingers and kind of dig a little spot if you want to add some. And you can kind of fill in with that. But see now, keep in mind when you're putting the layer on the top, just kind of make a note of where your hooks are, because nothing is worse than getting the basket all planted and then you can't find the hooks to put the chains on.
But you're putting the sphagnum an inch above the last bar, right?
Right. But leave those hooks exposed so you can see them, so when you put your chains on, you'll know where to go. I'll go back through. Ideally, I would have preferred to work with 4-inch impatiens, because they would be a little larger, excuse me, larger and have more color. But these little 4-packs do grow in very quickly, so in about 2 to 3 weeks, they're going to be showing lots of color. And I'm just tucking those in, making some space for them. What you're going to find happens is the plants literally all just kind of intermingle and grow around each other, so you can't tell where one plant starts and another one ends, and it's just going to be just a massive color and foliage. Get a few more impatiens. We're getting real close to being done here.
When you use that Super Thrive, what dilution do you use?
You want to use 1/4 teaspoon per gallon of water on the Super Thrive. It's basically a little vitamin supplement, and it's really good as a root stimulator. It's also particularly good when plants are under stress, and that is one of the reasons I do use it when I plant, because you do tend to stress the plants a little bit when you're working with the root systems, and it really kind of helps them to get over that.
Could you use that on a cactus?
You could. Now, don't use it as a foliar spray on a cactus. Some people will use the Super Thrive as a foliar spray, which is great on ferns and things, but not on succulents or cactus. But you could use it as a soil drench. Mix it up in a watering can and drench the soil with it. Okay. I'm just going to go back through here and just put another layer of moss. And you can kind of move the plants around if you need to. And I'm just checking in here to see if I need more soil. There's a couple of spots that need a little bit. Like right there. Another thing you'll find after a day or two, you may want to go back and check the side of the basket, because sometimes some of the moss will fall out, and if you have little holes there, you can either tuck another plant in there or fill it in with moss. And you don't want to do a whole lot of moving of the plants for the first day or two. You do want to let them get a little bit of roots going, because if you picked up a basket like this and dumped it over, everything would just fall right out, because there's nothing that's attached with roots. Okay, let me see. That looks pretty well done. And again, just take your little Super Thrive, mix it up in a watering can, and I'm going to go through and water. Even though everything I've been working with is wet, this just kind of helps to settle everything in. It'll help the soil to sink, and you want to make sure that the entire root ball of everything all the way down has been saturated. When you're watering, very oftentimes the mistake people make is they just water the top few inches of the soil. Every time you water a plant, you want to water or apply enough water that it's going to literally drain out the bottom. And I usually water, wait a few minutes, and then water it again to make sure it's saturated. You want to do very deep and less frequent waterings as opposed to shallow and frequent waterings. There are some things that you can do if you have plants that need a lot of moisture, or if you have a particularly hot area where things dry out quickly. There's some soil moist crystals that can be added to the soil when you plant, and those help a lot so that you don't have to water as frequently. Just be careful about not overusing them. Some plants will tend to stay too wet if you either put too much or if you use it on the wrong type of plants. For ferns and things, you could certainly use it, especially if you're not a person who wants to water every day. I tend to not use them simply because I like to check my plants every day, because if you're looking at your plants every day, you can see what's going on as far as their growth habit. You can find any insect or disease problems quickly. If you check them regularly, you have a better idea of what's happening. So now what you can do is just, like I said, put the chains on it, hang it, and leave it alone. Check it daily for water. And then, you know, a basket like this should last, planted now, it should last till well into the fall and early winter. Basically, when we have the first cold spell, the impatiens will go, and those can be pulled out, and then you put your winter plants in. So it's not like you have to replant the entire basket every season. I usually do 2 plantings a year, one in the spring and then one again in the late fall.
Could you bring it inside to save it?
You could, but now a moss lined basket would be a little messy inside.
Yeah.
That's why I just, like I said, I do, majority of the things I do are things that I know can tolerate both hot and cold weather, and then the annual color is really the only thing I change out. And plus I get tired of it. I like to experiment and try different things. You know, a new color or a new plant will come in and I want to try something. So just, you know, like it's about October, November, I'll pull these out and put cyclamen or something else that would tolerate the winter, and you've got a whole new look without much work.
And the bird's nest burn, will it take a freeze?
Now the bird's nest can take a light freeze. I've been surprised how cold-hardy they are. I had always been told that they were not, but I left mine out down to about 30 degrees and it was fine. If it gets much colder than that, you can cut it back or it'll freeze back, but it comes back from the roots, so it may or may not be evergreen. You know, if that's something that you want to keep, another little trick you can do is leave it in a pot and leave a hole in the center of your basket, and just put the entire pot down in there, like that 6-inch pot that it was in. You can set that down in there, surround it with your other plants, and then if you have a really cold spell, you can take it out and maybe either replace it with something else or just protect it depending on the weather.
How long did it operate that last? How many years?
You're talking about the basket? I've got mine in my backyard that I've had for 5 or 6 years, and the ivy is still, and the ferns are still there. The only thing I replace is the color. Yeah.
Donna, you said just pull them out and put others in, but I have a question. That first row of impatiens that you put in
Right.
are in the sphagnum moss. So
Right.
when you pull those out, would you wet the basket thoroughly so you could insert?
You will, and that, like she was saying, you know, if you have some that's already got moss in it, you're going to physically have to pull it out if you're going to replace them. So.
But then the moss around it, just add what you
Just
need.
add more what you need to.
Okay.
And you're going to find the moss does deteriorate over the seasons, and occasionally you will have to go back and add some more, and it's not a problem. You can, you know, just wet the whole thing, soak another batch, and just tuck it back in. Whatever the birds have taken, you can replace that. Typically what happens is this top layer right here, that's the first thing to go because the water's running over it, and it just gradually kind of erodes it. And that's the thing that's going to have to be replaced most often.
So what do you feed it with later?
Now again, we put the color essentials in, so this one should be good for about a month. If you want to use a liquid product, you can do the Has to Grow or the Natural Solutions. I like to use the liquid products as a foliar spray, and particularly if you have a lot of ivies and ferns, foliar sprays are very beneficial. We recommend seaweed and molasses regularly. I do mine at least once
Like
every
those?
7 to 10 days. Yeah, like the
How do you use them?
mix it up in a sprayer. You can put it in a hose-in sprayer or just a hand sprayer and actually spray the foliage. It works very well, and that keeps the plants, it just kind of perks. I've even been known to take the Super Thrive product, mix it with my seaweed and molasses, and do a foliar spray with that. Especially during the summer if things are looking a little tired or wilted, it just really perks things up.
Don, I have some of those wire baskets that are really, really big, and
Right.
I found exactly what you were saying. They just turn out really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything creative I could do with it that wouldn't be so cumbersome?
Same thing you can do, like we were talking about using a plastic liner and do your
Okay.
planting in the plastic liner.
Okay.
And you could even use just like either moss, rather than the soaked moss, you can use what's known as a cocoa liner. I'll show you this. Or the Spanish moss that you were talking about. This is a cocoa liner.
Okay.
And this you don't have to wet. So you could do something like that, line your basket, set your plastic containers down in there. That way you don't have so much wet cocoa.
Well, I could-
And like I said, this protects it somewhat too, and you don't have all the weight from the water.
Okay.
So you could use those instead of sphagnum.
You could. Now the only disadvantage to using a cocoa
Can't
liner
cut.
is you can't side plant. But if you have things that you want to plant where they're just going to have plants on the top, and you can even put things that'll trail over the edge, this will work very well for you.
Maybe like the fern that you were talking about, which is the one that takes over.
The asparagus fern would do very well with a liner like that, because the root ball on that gets very heavy in itself. And if you put moss in addition to that, you have a basket that would just weigh a ton. I had one gentleman that had me make some baskets that were, believe it or not, bigger than, had to hire a tree company, and they had to install a pulley so that he could lift the baskets. Because they're very, very heavy. Well, thank everybody for coming and choosing.